दाल रोटी खाओ प्रभु के गुण गाओ, a very famous Bollywood song from yesteryears. The song truly signifies that India became self-sufficient in roti through Green Revolution. But dal, lentils or pulses have remained a challenge. I am standing in a field of arhar. On this episode, we look at how India, which is the largest producer of pulses, the largest consumer of pulses, and till recently, the largest importer of pulses. We look at how India is trying to be self-sufficient in the sector of pulses. This episode of Life and Science with Pallav Bagla is a close look at the research being done on pulses, a pulse revolution in the making. There is no doubt that India needs to ramp up its production of pulses. Pulses are an important source of protein for Indians. I am standing in a field of masoor or lentil in the Indian Agricultural Research Institute. And to explain to us the challenges of the cultivation of pulses and especially lentils, we have with us Professor H.K. Dikshit. Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar.
Professor Dikshit has spent many decades trying to breed better varieties of these crops. These may be small plants, but they give a lot of protein for India. Professor Dikshit, for a layperson, what are pulses?
Pulses are the plants, leguminous plants which produce nutritious seeds for human consumption, and they fix atmospheric nitrogen in the soil. Pulses are classified based on season in India. We have Rabi pulses. In Rabi pulses, we mainly have chickpea and lentil and field peas. These are the major pulses. Whereas in Kharif pulses, we have pigeon pea, mung bean, urd bean. There are minor pulses also, but focus of government is more on now minor pulses as well as major pulses.
What are the main uses of masoor, sir?
Masoor, mainly it is used as dal purpose in India. Then masoor flour can be used for bread making in Indian subcontinent, whereas in case of this Mediterranean region, it is used as muchaddara, that is the khichdi of this with rice, lentil rice along with onions, and in Mediterranean region they like lentil soups.
So, what are the main challenges of growing lentils and breeding lentils?
Challenges of lentil breeding can be identified zone wise. In central India, the major challenges are disease like fusarium wilt, and then there is scarcity of water. We call that as terminal moisture stress. So that is there, and then we need earliness to escape that. In case of eastern India, the major problem in lentil is rust and stem phyllium blight. In eastern India, we require small seeded varieties of lentil which can mature in a short period, so that we can escape this terminal moisture stress. When we see nowadays, earliness is most important. If we can breed early varieties, then there is lot of area in rice fallows. There again our varieties can fit well.
Dr. Dikshit, what is India's pulse production? Do we import them, and where do we import them, and what are we doing towards reducing imports?
We are expecting that this year we will be producing around 27 million tons of pulses, and we could achieve this level because of the combined efforts of Government of India, ICR and state agriculture universities. Government of India under National Food Security Mission provided subsidy for newly released varieties, and ICR with the Government of India to ensure adequate supply of quality seeds created 150 plus seed hubs to flood the seed of newly released varieties. And this has increased the quality seed availability, and we are every year our pulse production is increasing, but as of now we are importing 2-3 million tons of pulses. Its mainly import is from Canada and Australia.
Sir, we grow so much rice and wheat. Cannot some land be transferred from rice and wheat where we are more than sufficient to grow pulses, where we are importing over 3,000 crores worth of pulses?
See, wheat and rice, they are assured crops. Economic returns to the farmers are assured, and there is MSP. Even in NSP, procurement is assured. In case of pulses, procurement is slightly difficult because we lack storage facilities. Government is trying to create the storage facilities, and I am very confident very soon this procurement in pulses will be like that of wheat and rice. Once we procure it and we start giving it in PDS system, then that would provide stability. Farmers will be assured of their income. They would definitely like to grow the pulses. Farmer is concerned mainly on economic returns.
How soon can we be self-sufficient? Your specific area is masoor or lentil. How soon can we be self-sufficient?
See, the kind of effort which Government of India, ICR, Indian Institute of Pulses Research and IRI is making, I think in 4-5 years we will be self-sufficient in lentils. But here there is a caution. Our demand is also increasing. So we have to work very, very hard to cope up with the increasing demands of pulses, because a lot of non-vegetarian people, they are shifting on vegetarian diets. So I think this will continue, and we will be continuously under pressure to breed varieties with higher yield and better nutritive value. At IRI, we are also focusing on biofortification of grain legumes to address the malnutrition problems.
Having understood the challenges of masoor or lentil cultivation, let's go into other aspects of research on pulses. Let's go. Dr. Dikshit, what are we seeing here? Are these the new and the future of lentil and masoor in India?
Yes, in last 5 years we released 5 varieties of lentil. This first one, L4717, is small seeded variety released for central India. This variety matures in 100 seed days and is rich in grain iron concentration. Then we released L4727. It's a bold seeded variety with preferred seed color, and this again is very useful. It has given the yield level of up to 3 tons in acre trials. Then last year we released this variety L4729. This is also early maturing bold seeded variety. At IRI we have reduced the maturity duration from 120-25 days to 100 days. And then we released 2 varieties of lentil, PSL9 and PDL1, for moderately saline soils of this Haryana and Eastern UP.
Having understood the challenges of cultivation and breeding of masoor or lentil, let's go and take a look at other aspects of research on pulses. Let's go, sir. So what do you do in this lab, and what kind of experiments are done, and what kind of new things you are doing here?
We are trying to biofortify lentil, and for that we are trying to identify molecular markers through association mapping approach. And then in addition to that, we are trying to identify molecular markers for phosphorus use efficiency in lentils and also in mung beans. During last 2-3 years, we have started working on phosphorus use efficiency of both lentils and mung beans. We are again phenotyping them here, and then for genotyping we are outsourcing, and then using bioinformatic tools we are trying to identify candidate genes, then their validation. And one more new thing we have started in lentils, that is development of microgreens. Microgreens are the seedlings, 10 to 15 days old seedling, which are grown in sunlight, and then we are making their powders. Their powder is called microgreens. This concept is very common in European countries and in America, but in India we have started.
It says rich in vitamins and antioxidants.
Antioxidants, vitamins, and micronutrients.
So how does one use them?
So this powder can be sprinkled in food dishes and food preparations.
And like we sprinkle black pepper or other things, we can sprinkle nutrients.
Right. Will be very helpful for the people who are living in remote areas who don't have access to vegetables, and for defense people also who are living in Leh-Ladakh region. We got project from DRDO. In that project, we have got some results, and now we are taking forward those results.
And it's mostly lentils or it's other pulses also?
We are working on lentils and mung beans.
And this particular project where you're making powders, is the nutrient level maintained in the powder or is the green better?
Our nutrient level is maintained in the powder because supplying green will be difficult. So our focus is on, in breeding, we see this nutrient level in powder of several varieties. Then we compare for which trait, which variety is better. Based on that, we make the recommendations. We can use the varieties which are good for some traits, and we can cross them with our improved variety for transferring those traits.
Thanks a lot for speaking to us and explaining to us the work being done on lentils and masoor, which is such an important part of our use in Indian cuisine. Having seen how new ways of giving better nutrition to Indians is being perfected at the Indian Agricultural Research Institute, let us now go and see the work being done on chickpea or chana. Our pakoras can never be made without besan, and besan comes from chana. So let's go and see in the field how work is being done on chickpeas or chana. I'm standing in a field of chickpea or chana, and I have with me Dr. C. Bharadwaj. Namaskar, sir. Dr. Bharadwaj is a breeder of chickpea for the last 2 decades and works on pulses. Dr. Bharadwaj, pakoras, besan go very well with Indians. I'm told your signature is almost on every pakora we eat. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you.
And how much chickpea production do we have?
Now, when we compare to all the pulses in the country, if you look out of the 25.26 million tons of the pulses that were produced, we find that more than 49% of the production is of chickpea in the country, followed by, of course, pigeon pea, then by moong, then by urad, then by lentil. So, chickpea has a great role in the Indian pulse economy.
Dr. Bharadwaj, what are the key challenges of breeding, cultivation, and then final use of chickpea in India?
Very good question, Pallavaji. When you look at out, that chickpea has shifted from North Indian latitude to the central and the mid Indian latitude. We are the largest producer in the world of chickpea and also largest consumer of the world in chickpea. Now, when you are looking at the thing, since it has gone, then we need to actually breed for high drought tolerant and high temperature tolerant chickpea varieties. Fusarium wilt is a major problem in chickpea, what we call as ukta rog in Hindi. So, we need to have varieties absolutely resistant. Chickpea is generally grown in marginal lands without nitrogen or without any fertilizers or without water. So, you need to develop varieties that are able to grow fast taking minimal resources and produce more. So these are some of the biggest challenges that we have. And since it grows out of place, leaving aside the pod borer, we need to look at how we develop resistance in them.
So how are you going to do that?
Yeah, that's very right. So, ICAR, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare and Women Development, has made a pact with ICARDA.
What is
So,
ICARDA?
International Center for Agricultural Research in Dryland areas, similarly with ICRISAT. So, we have collected land races from the Wana region, West Asia and North Africa, which is totally a different race from the Indian subcontinent. And we have wild chickpeas, and what we are trying to do is introgress important genes and alleles from these into the cultivated types. Similarly, we are now using genomic assisted breeding, very good work in collaboration with ICRISAT, Rajiv and the group.
Varshne.
Yeah, Varshne, exactly. And the group where we introgressed and made resistance to multiple races of chickpea. In that way, we are very proud to say that IRI and particularly our country India now is a global leader in developing marker assisted bred chickpea varieties.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi
Yeah,
recently
exactly.
visited the fields
Fields.
of chickpea in Ikrisat.
That's exactly. Now, how do you increase production? This is one of the biggest factor. So, if you have wilt resistance, you have drought tolerance, you can actually breed for climate resilient varieties. And this is one of the most important factor. And at IRI, what we have done, resistance to all the fog genes. We have different races at Kanpur, a different set of races for Northwest Plain Zone, a different set of fusarium wilt organism which affects at the central zone. So what we have done using the donor source, we have built in or stacked all these resistant genes and also brought in drought tolerance.
You brought climate resilience.
Exactly.
There is much talk about the footprint. What is the kind of footprint, if you can give me a comparison between production of protein by production of chickpea, and also because one important source of protein is also meats. So can you give me the footprint for water and carbon
Exactly.
dioxide?
When you look at carbon footprints in general, when we speak of, chickpea has 0.65, because what happens is because you produce forages and they also consume water. When you are looking at water, so it is almost 1/18 of meat, 1/10 of rice, and among pulses also, when you compare with pigeon pea versus chickpea or any kharif pulses with versus rabi crops, it is 1/6.
So it's a very climate friendly crop.
Climate resilient crop, I can put it. And at the same time, it is not only the protein, what is digestible protein? Chana or chickpea is a complete food and protein itself, whether it is beta carotenes, whether it is iron, whether it is zinc, whether it is essential amino acids and digestible protein. So chickpea gives a complete food.
There is one more benefit of having pulses or legume crops in the field. How do they enrich the soil?
Exactly. So when you are looking at, they not only use lesser nutrients, but they have rhizobium. So what it does is basically it captures the atmospheric nitrogen in its nodules and provides to the plant. But since lot of it is left, it has been estimated that almost 40 to 50 kgs per acre of nitrogen is made available to the succeeding crop.
So meaning the amount of urea you use is reduced if you grow legumes?
Yeah, totally, exactly. This is one biggest benefit, and since it accelerates the soil microflora and microfauna, so this becomes another important addition. Why? If you can look down, there is a lot of leaf fall in most of the pulses, and this in its way makes up soil manurity apart from the rhizobium based nitrogen fixation. That are the twin advantages.
Let's now go and take a look at how drought resistance and water stress is being handled in breeding of chickpea. Let's go. Dr. Bharadwaj, Where are we and why are these plants in these plastic tubes? What is the experiment?
A good one. Basically, we are evaluating genotypes and we are trying to decipher them at their transcriptomic level, at their metabolomic level, as well as at their morphological and physiological level for drought. So, we have the most drought tolerant genotypes, like I said, Pusa chickpea 10216, its parent, the donor, and the susceptible lines. Like that is the drought tolerant experiment. This is the drought. Uh, what we say is this is the control experiment, which is fully watered. Then again in the behind you have the drought tolerant lines. So these lines actually are evaluated for the root traits, because from the donor we introgress the root QTLs.
So, meaning not just the part which is seen, you are looking at how the roots and how they bring in nutrients.
Nutrients and what makes them absorb more water compared to a susceptible line, how they are able to nodulate, what is the thickness of the roots, lateral roots, because roots play a major role in imparting drought tolerance. And what are the genes that are eliciting? So there is no water. So at that stage, what are the genes that are eliciting for the roots, asking them to grow?
So, will these plants also work like climate smart plants as the climate changes and the
That
globe
is what
warms up?
we are looking at. That how we are able to get more crop per drought.
So this is one experiment towards this. And in this, are you also testing for different kinds of biofortifications in general in chickpea?
In general, in chickpea, we have an experiment basically where we are looking at improving the protein content, which is already very high in chickpea, but we are trying to improve the protein content. We identified donors with as high as 33-38% protein. Similarly, better amino acids. And we are now trying to introgress these into cultivated lines so that we, in general, improve the protein and the amino acid profile of chickpea, and then so that there is protein, calorie, nutritional security for the masses.
Having seen how drought tolerant varieties are being made for chickpea, let us now go back into the field and see how new and better varieties of chickpea have been developed to try and make India self-sufficient in pulses. Let's go. Dr. Bharadwaj, through all this work, what are the varieties you have bred and what are the specialities of it?
Now, as I am saying, these are the world's first molecular breeding bred varieties, highly drought tolerant, even under the most drought water stressed conditions of 20% moisture, which is specific in Bundelkhand region and other central India, it gives an yield of 1.5 tons.
And what about the other ones, sir?
These are the bold seeded Kabuli varieties that we have been breeding. Now you can imagine a farmer gets more than 1000 rupees per ton in the market, and now we are developing, for example, this Pusa 3022, which has about 40 grams, and now we are in the process of 100 seed weight is 40. We are going to develop about 68 and 64 grams, so which they call as dollar chana with poor yield. We are now developing bold seeded and high yielding lines. So this is all the culmination of this breeding work that we have come. Similarly, we were looking at east towards revolution, and this is the first variety that has been released, Pusa 3043, for the northeast plain zone including Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, plains of Assam, and that is how we are thinking to bring a pulse revolution in the country at the four corners.
Thanks a lot for speaking to us, Dr. Bharadwaj.
It was
May
nice.
you be able to breed better and better varieties of chickpea and all the other pulses, because India needs a lot of proteins. We
Thank
are
you.
vegetarians in a very big way, and this is a very good source. And like you explained, also a very climate friendly, climate resilient, so a climate smart variety. Future lies with legumes. Thanks a lot for
Thank
speaking
you.
to us.
Thank you. Pulse is the pulse of the country.
Thank you. There is no doubt that pulses hold the pulse for human health, soil health, and in times to come, As the globe warms up and climate changes, these plants will provide copious proteins for the vegetarian population of India. A pulse revolution or a pulse impulse in the making for India. India wants to shed the tag of being the largest importer of pulses in the world. To have the pulse on pulses, breeding is required, research is required, and that is what Indian scientists are doing. Keep watching India Science.